Hey y'all, welcome back to my channel. My name is Susie, and on my channel I love to share with y'all my vintage booth and how I do that. I also do thrift flips that I sell in my booth, and I love showing you how to do those. So if that's the kind of content that you like, I would love it if you would subscribe and be sure and ring that notification bell so you know when I upload a new video. Today's video is jam-packed. It's a mega thrift flip video. Y'all, I got started and I could not stop. I have got my mojo back and I am going at it. If you watched last week's thrift haul video, I got these two mirrors for next to nothing. And I'm going to give them a makeover today. This one here, I am painting with Dixie Belle's Mint Julep. And I never tape off the glass when I paint mirrors or pictures or anything like that. To me, it's just as easy to scrape it off the glass after I'm done than it is to tape it off before. So I got this one all painted and it's dry, and then I took some sandpaper and I just was going to distress it and bring some of that gold back. However, it looked white underneath there instead of gold. So I am taking now a little bit of rub and buff on my fingers and just hitting the high spots on the mirror where I want the gold to shine through. And I love how this one turned out. I went ahead and sealed it up and cleaned the glass off, and this mirror is gorgeous now. And this one, I'm going to use the Fusion paint in the hazelwood color. It's got a lot of detail that we are going to bring back with some wax. I'm going to put 2 coats on it. Again, I'm not taping off the mirror. I'll get that off when I'm finished. Once I got the 2 coats on, we're going to come back with some white wax and just highlight all those details in that mirror. White wax is super easy to do. I'm just using a cheap chip brush and getting it down in all those crevices, and then take a paper towel and wipe back on the high spots, and it brings the gray back out, and it also acts as a sealer. So once I have got this one all complete, it is done. See how that white stays in all those details that you really couldn't even notice before? And this one, oh, the gold and the green together, I absolutely love. Y'all don't pay any attention to the mess on my table in the reflection. And these are both of them styled up in my booth. I also have quite a few furniture projects that I need to get done. I got this nightstand probably 8 or 9 months ago, and it's just been sitting in the basement ever since. Surprisingly, though, it wasn't extremely dirty, just a little bit dusty, so I got it cleaned up, removed the hardware, and we are going to paint this with the Fusion mineral paint in the color hazelwood, just like we just did that mirror. I'm using a new brush that I ordered from Julie's Designs and Signs. It is the pointed sash brush, and it is so easy to use, and this paint is amazing. I just cannot say how much I love this paint enough and how easy it is to paint with. I only paid $15 for this nightstand, and I'm hoping by the time I complete it, I can get 80 or 90. These are my best-selling items, these smaller furniture items, and I absolutely love painting furniture. To me, it's so very relaxing. Another thing that I love about Fusion Paint is it is all in one. So once I have it all painted up, it's sealed and everything and ready to go. And moving on to the next step, I'm going to put the Melrose Pages transfers on this. For the drawer, I am doing the mushrooms, and I ended up having to cut a little bit off that was just a little bit too tall. Typically, you want to do this before you remove the paper backing, but I was able to get it cut apart, and instead of putting it up there, I put it down below, and I just arranged them in a way that I thought was pleasing and looked even on the drawer. And for the top of the dresser, I'm going to do some more from the Melrose Pages. If you've never used a transfer, they're super easy. You just place them on your piece how you want it, and you use the tool that you get with the transfers to rub until the image is transferred onto your object. If you lift a little bit as you're going, it will allow some air to get underneath there and helps it release. And then once you have your piece down, you want to rub it with the plastic backing just to burnish all the edges and everything into your project. On the top of this nightstand, I am using all the butterflies from the Melrose Pages, and then I did run out and had to get a few of the insects as well, but still I think that this looks so cute. I'm reusing the same hardware because I loved it, and I love how this little nightstand's turned out, and here it is staged in my booth. I'm sure it's going to sell right away. Talk about a transformation you are going to see with this desk. I also got this for $15 at a yard sale. It is in rough condition, as you can see, but I saw the potential, and it was real wood, came with a cute little chair, so I knew that I could do something amazing with it, and I knew that I wanted to get the top sanded down and leave it with the wood grain. So I am using I think this is probably a 120 grit sandpaper to clean the top really well, and then I'll come back with a 220 just to smooth it out. I did a easy scuff sanding on the rest of it and cleaned it up really well. Crud Cutter is my favorite degreaser cleaner. It just seems to do the trick when one good spray down and wipe down. So that's what I'm doing here. I'm just getting everything wiped down and cleaned up really good so I can bring it in and start painting next. I'm going to use the same Fusion mineral paint that I used before on the little nightstand, and another new brush that I got from Julie, from Julie's Designs and Signs, and I just love this paint, y'all. I need every color available. I've got to get me some more ordered. It just goes on so smooth and so easy. So I got everything painted, and now I'm going to work on the top of the desk. I am using DIY Dark and Decrepit. If you've ever used a gel stain, this kind of reminds me of that, but it's like a tinted sealer, and I love the color of it. Dark and decrepit is a pretty good word for it, but I'm just, everything I've ever put this on has turned out beautiful. And I have put this on a lot of things, and with that same little jar. It is getting pretty low now, but there is still some in it. I'm going to clean, I got the insides of the drawer cleaned up as good as I could, but there was some old contact paper in there that I just could not get out. So I sanded it smooth, and I'm putting a new contact paper on all the drawers, and it has a hint of the same gray in it, so it looks really cute when the drawer opens. For the hardware, again, I decided to go with what it already had. Everything was there, and I like to use the hardware it comes with when it's available. I scuffed these a little bit with a sanding block, and I'm going to put the dark and decrepit on it just so it matches the top. Going to just paint that on there with a brush and then let it dry overnight. And then we're going to move on to the chair and updating all the drawers. I wanted this to be something that would kind of go with that nightstand that I did earlier, but I didn't want to put transfers on it, so I'm going to be using the butterfly stamps on this. This chair, I painted it solid with the Fusion paint, and even the seat was like leather, but it was in such great shape that it painted perfectly. And I'm just going to stamp 2 of the large butterflies directly in the center of the chair. And I'm not even going to distress this piece. I love this paint so much, and I think it looks so good. So I'm going to just leave it as is. It doesn't need sealed. It has a built-in sealer. It's all in one. Look how cute that little chair turned out. And then for the drawers, I'm going to put all the hardware back on, and each one I'm going to stamp a different butterfly on each side of the handle. This desk was a lot of work with a lot of different aspects to it, but I love how it turned out, and it's so worth it to me to see something that was definitely headed to the dump to turn out to be something as amazing as this desk. Okay, we're going to do some smalls here for a little bit. I got these orbs a couple weeks ago. Y'all may remember them from last week's haul, and I'm just going to refresh them some. They were both like new. One of them was still in the plastic. Summer's coming up, and I wanted some fresh, bright things in my booth, so I'm giving these 2 coats of this yellow paint. I think this is a Rethunk Junk resin paint. It's an all-in-one thing too, but we're going to get a coat of paint, or 2 coats of paint on each of these, and then we'll go from there. I also finally come across one of these hobnail vases, and I think that they are so pretty painted. I've seen Sonnet do it several times, and I thought that it would be beautiful with this bright yellow color on there too. She usually distresses hers, but I think that I'm going to do some white wax on it and see how that turns out. From the two roosters from last week's haul, I decided to leave the larger cookie jar one as is and try to sell it that way. But this one I'm going to give a paint job. And while I'm painting with the yellow, I'm going to give it a coat of yellow paint too. All painted up and dry now, and if you guessed that I was going to use white wax on these to bring out all this beautiful detail, you were correct. Just using a cheap chip brush to get in all the little cracks and crevices, and then I'll come back with a paper towel and wipe some of it back to show that beautiful yellow color. I love using white wax on things like this. I think it just takes it up a whole nother level and really makes them look high end. And I am loving this bright yellow color for summer. What do you guys think about how these turned out? The rooster, however, I just didn't like the yellow on it for some reason. So I used it as a first coat, and then I came back and painted the entire thing white. I just couldn't get this rooster how I liked it. Once I got it solid white, I just felt like it was just too plain then, and I liked the original paint job on it better at that point. So I decided to come back with some antiquing wax. I didn't want to use dark wax because I felt like it was too dark. But then when I put the antiquing wax on, it was too, I guess, reddish kind of looking. I mixed it with some clear wax so it would be easier to wipe back. And that seemed to finally turn out okay, but I'm still not really crazy about how this rooster turned out. But sometimes the things that I don't love that much, someone else really does, and it sells really fast. So I'm hoping that that's the case with this rooster. What do you guys think? What's your honest opinion? Do you think I ruined it? Would you have left it yellow? Would you have left it white? What would you have done? And here is the finished rooster. He does look kind of majestic, so I think he's going to sell pretty good. I've had this little wooden box with this really cute lavender arrangement in it for a while. I didn't really like the distress paint job on it, so I'm just going to tape off the lavender so I don't get any paint on it. And then I'm going to give it a couple of coats of white paint, and then I'm going to seal it, and then we're going to put some transfers on it. Be sure you let your sealer dry completely before starting transfers. This is my 2-gallon Ziploc bag full of transfer scraps. I'm going to end up using a few from the entomology, some butterflies and such. And I absolutely forgot I had these butterflies when I was doing that nightstand, or I would have used them instead of the insects. I'm also going to use some of the scraps from the bungalow transfer. If you guys remember the video where I made this huge artwork, I had to cut off lots of the edges of the greenery, and this is a perfect opportunity to use those. You can't really use them, on their own, but on something like this with these edges, they go just perfect. If you let your sealer dry completely, transfers are very simple to put on. They'll come right off, and you just want to be sure and burnish them on with the plastic backing when you're done. And you can also layer transfers and just put them how you want. You don't have to do it just like the picture shows. They go in so many different ways. You can see here I am wrapping around the side of the box with this fern. And then I'm just going to put butterflies over the top of all of it. And this was a really fun and really precious way to get rid of a few of my scraps. And I think it turned out great. And I love this lavender arrangement. It's so real looking. And I just think this little box turned out so cute. Okay, on to a bigger project, and I was able to get my husband to help me out with this one. I have a basement full of chairs that I need to do something with. I had a little vision for these. These are leftover from the table and chair set that I made that I put the transfer on. I only used 4 of those chairs because I didn't have the leaf for the chair. So I had 2 more left over. They needed a few repairs. They were just the ones that were not in good shape. So he sturdied everything up and got everything good and well put together. And then we had some leftover 2x4s where I took the top off of a rolling island type thing that I had found on Marketplace a while back. I actually have the island in the basement. I'll put a picture here for y'all, but we put a countertop top on it that matched our other countertop in the basement. So these were painted. They needed to be straightened up. They weren't really cut well, but he cut them, and then we put them on the 2 chairs. We're going to make a bench out of the 2 chairs, like a little garden bench. So he got it all put together for me, and then we'll get to painting. So it's all put together now, and I filled in all the holes with some wood putty and sanded them smooth once they had dried. And it took me quite a while and 3 coats of paint to get this entirely painted. Probably would have been a better idea to paint the chairs before putting them together, but y'all know I like to do things the hard way anyway. So I finally got it all painted. And I really wasn't sure what my vision for this at this point was be. I just knew that I wanted it white and distressed. So once I got it painted, I decided that I would do a paint inlay on it. So y'all didn't think you were going to get away with a video without a paint inlay. Now that I know how to do them, and it seems to go pretty good every time. I really enjoy the paint inlays. They were a little scary at first, but once you get the hang of them, they're so easy and the results are amazing. I'm going to use the Summer Villa paint inlay. I'm only going to be able to use the bottom part, and I'll save the top part for another project. These paint inlays can be used several times, and these large ones, you can get so many projects out of them. So I've already got the pages cut down and the edges cut off where they will meet up. What you want to do is put a good amount of paint on there, but make sure it is smooth. So I'm getting a lot of paint on my brush, but I am working it really well and getting it very smooth, and also making sure to get a little bit down in the cracks so the paint inlay can be pushed down in there as well. So once you get your coat of paint, you just lay your inlay into the wet paint and press it down. Don't be afraid to smooth it out with your hand. You're not going to hurt it. See, I'm pushing it down in between the boards here and getting it down really smooth. And then I am going to take a brayer and just make sure that every little bit of that paint inlay is contacting some of the wet paint where it will transfer very smooth. After getting your paint inlay pressed down into the paint, then you're going to take a mister bottle and just mist the entire back of the paint inlay. It will turn, the darker color so you can see when it's wet. I like to give it a good healthy amount and then come back with a damp rag, pushing it down more and getting any of the excess water off. So I just do it sheet by sheet and make sure to line it up as closely as you can. If you don't line them up closely, you'll see the white streak in between them. So I am laying the paint down, putting the paint inlay into the wet paint, pressing it down, smoothing it out, using a brayer to get good contact, and then re-wetting it so it will connect with the paint. Once your inlay is dry, then comes the fun part. So this is about an hour later and it's completely dry. I used a chalk paint. So this is, you just re-wet your whole thing with your mister bottle. I let it sit for about 30 seconds just to get in there good. And then you slowly want to peel your inlay back and your image will transfer into the paint, and this one's turning out wonderful. I love how that cow looks under that tree. This one came out perfect. I'm telling you, once you get the hang of these inlays, they are so easy, and I love the results. Don't forget to lay your papers flat with the wet side up. or the paint side up. That way you can use them again. You just put them back in the pack with the paper between them. What I'm doing here is I am misting it with half polyacrylic and half water. I want to set the image in and let it dry completely before moving on to the next step. The only thing I did after that was distress it and seal it really well. And y'all, I'm obsessed with this little bench. I kind of want to keep it myself, but I can make a big profit off of it, so I'm going to have to sell it. For the next project, we're going to do a rolling pin. I had 3 or 4 rolling pins in my booth, and now I have none. I'd actually stopped picking them up because they're kind of expensive in the thrift stores, but I did have this one in my stash, and I'll have to be on the lookout. So the first thing I'm going to do is paint the entire rolling part of it white and let that dry, and we're going to seal it up with some polyacrylic. I am then going to paint the handles with this mint julep Dixie Belle color. I love this color. It's so springy and summer and beautiful, and it is one of my favorite colors. After everything has dried, I'm going to do something I have never done before, and I'm going to stamp on a rolling pin. I've seen several people do it. It looks kind of hard, but I think I can do it, and I'm going to go with the birds and the bees stamp, and I'm just going to leave them on the backing. I love how they're arranged on this backing, so I'm just going to ink it up with some IOD black ink, and then I'm going to carefully roll the rolling pin over the stamp all the way around, being very careful not to overlap them, and the images come out beautiful. All that's left to do here is distress the handles and seal the entire thing with some polyacrylic. And this is one of my favorite thrift flips. I love rolling pins, and they sell really well for me. Another thing that I had quite a few of that I don't have anymore were these little cheese cloches, and I got this one for $4.99, and I also got this silver candlestick for a couple of bucks at an estate sale. And I'm going to marry the two, but first I am going to paint the base of the cloche with this Gravel Road by Dixie Belle. Looking at it here, I realize how close this color is to the fusion color that we used on the nightstand and the desk earlier. I should have used it because it has a built-in sealer, but that's okay. I went ahead and painted this one with the chalk paint and then sealed it up with some polyacrylic sealer. So I did not want to paint where the glue was going to go, so I put the candlestick base down and then just painted the bottom around it. There wasn't going to be a lot for the glue to stick to, so I didn't want paint or anything to hinder that. So I'm going to use some Gorilla Glue, and we're going to let this sit overnight, and the next morning it was completely not going anywhere. I could not even peel it off, or I could not even take it apart. I still needed to seal the paint in, so I gave it a good coat of polyacrylic sealer and then let it dry before moving on to the next step. I'm going to use a transfer from the traditional pots transfer. It has black and blue and white transfers. So I'm going to use this white one in the center of the cloche base. And I want to show y'all why it is so important to let your sealer dry completely, because I got in a hurry in this one and it did pull off some of the paint. Luckily, in this case, it wasn't a huge ordeal because I could just, touch the paint up and seal it again, because I have to seal over the transfer anyway. And by the way, if you want some of these transfers and you don't know how to get them, I will leave a link in the description box below where you can find a stockist near you. I don't sell online, but I do sell in my booth currently. I really love how this little riser cloche base turned out. I love the dark gray on it, and I'm going to use this color in the next project as well. So I paid a little bit more for this candlestick than I normally would have. It was $5.99, but it's all of 2 feet tall. It's really big. Somebody tried to do an interesting paint job on it, but we're going to do something, give it a little bit of texture. I am using that Gravel Road Dixie Belle paint, and I am mixing it with some baking soda, and then I'm going to stipple it on to the candlestick, just creating lots of texture and getting good coverage on it. I'm going to do 2 coats. I'm actually mixed up just the right amount, which is odd. Usually I have too much or not enough, but I had just the right amount to do 2 coats on this candlestick. Here is after the 2 coats are on, y'all, and look at all that texture. It looks kind of like concrete, so we're going to go with that, and we're going to make it look like old concrete. Here's after it has dried, and I'm going to clear wax it first, because it does have so much texture that if I put the white wax on now, I wouldn't be able to wipe any back. It would just suck right into all that stippling and that baking soda paint mixture that we did. I'm going to wipe back the clear wax, and then we're going to come in with the white wax, and see, like I said, it's already sticking in there pretty good, but I am able to wipe it back a little bit, and it looks so good and so high end. And I did, like I said, I paid up a little bit for this, so I'm thinking, since I love it so much, I'm probably going to keep it for myself. See how gorgeous it is, and this is why I want to keep it. So while I was doing that cloche base, I got to thinking about all the things I had in my stash that I could marry. And I come up with a few things. I had these couch bottoms and these scratched up silver candlesticks, and I had these cute little baskets that I had got in a bag at the thrift store. So I thought that they would go great on those little candlesticks. And I had another leg from an old couch that I took apart, and this wood round that was already cut that I got in the same bag, I think, at the thrift store. I've got my little helper keeping me company today. So we're just going to marry all these items and come up with some cute little risers. This one's going to be the easiest one. All I had to do was take the felt off the bottom of the round and glue it to the couch leg, and that's all there is to it. The paint was naturally distressed on the couch leg, so I just left it as is. I let it sit overnight, and it's done. How stinking cute is that for a little riser? You could put a little bird on it, or a vase, or anything. I had these little measuring cups I just stuck on there, and I thought that the copper was cute. With the other couch leg, I had already painted it white, and I think I had stuck a Christmas tree in it. So I'm going to use it, and I'm going to paint that bowl, that enamel bowl, with this mint julep. I'm not going to paint the bottom because I don't want it to hinder the glue when I glue it on there, but I am going to paint around the sides and the middle of the bowl with this mint julep. Then I'm going to seal it all up really well. And that's all there is to that one, other than gluing it together and letting it sit. I did wipe all the paint off of the silver rim just to keep that detail. And I think this little guy turned out pretty cute. It looks like I do need to touch up some paint on it, but I really like this. I'll probably keep this for myself too, because I don't need to sell all these risers, and this will go perfect on my mantle with some floral in it. The silver candlesticks were super scratched up. I don't normally like to paint silver, but I thought since these were so scratched that they would look better painted and distressed. So I am giving them both 2 coats of this mint julep paint. Again, I'm not going to paint the top of them because we're going to glue those little baskets on there. I am wet distressing it just to bring back some of that silver and, you know, some of the natural areas that it would distress anyway, and making sure that I don't have any paint on that top part before I glue it on. Once I have them distressed like I want it, I'm going to clear coat them with some polyacrylic sealer, let them dry, and then we're going to come back and use some Gorilla Glue to glue those little baskets on the top. Gosh, these turned out so cute. I really love them. I love the look of the wood basket with that green color. They are just perfect. Okay, y'all, I think I'm gonna have to call it done. I cannot believe how many thrift flips I got done for this video, but I just couldn't stop. I got started and the creative juices were flowing. My husband was out of town for 5 days on a hunting trip, so I had a little bit more time on my hands than I normally do. I feel so good about this video. I hope that y'all have enjoyed it. Please like it and share it, and take your time watching it. I realize it's 45 minutes long, so you may have to do it in a couple of sittings, but I just really hope that y'all enjoy this video, and I appreciate you guys watching my channel so much, and all your kind comments and your likes, and I hope that y'all have a wonderful night, and I'll see you again next week.